We pick up on page 219 where the big indentation is around line 288. The hearts inside us shook, terrified by his rumbling voice and monstrous hulk. Nevertheless, I found the nerve to answer firmly. Men of Achaia are we are, and bound now from Troy, driven far off course by the warring winds, over the vast gulf of the sea, battling home on a strange tack, a route that's off the map. And so we've come to you. So it must please King Zeus's plotting heart. We're glad to say we're men of Atrides Agamemnon, whose fame is the proudest thing on earth these days. So great a city he sacked, such multitudes he killed. But since we've chanced on you, we're at your knees in hopes of a warm welcome, even a guest gift, the sort that host gives strangers. That's the custom. Respect the gods, my friend. We're suppliants, at your mercy. Zeus of the strangers guards all guests and suppliants. Strangers are sacred. Zeus will avenge their rights.
Stranger,
he grumbled back from his brutal heart.
You must be a fool, stranger, or come from nowhere, telling me to fear the gods or avoid their wrath. We Cyclops never blink at Zeus and Zeus's shield of storm and thunder, or any other blessed god. We've got more force by far. I'd never spare you in fear of Zeus's hatred. You or your comrades here, unless I had the urge. But tell me, where did you moor your sturdy ship when you arrived? Up the coast or close in? I'd just like to know.
So he laid his trap, but he never caught me. No, wise to the world, I shot back in my crafty way. My ship? Poseidon, god of the earthquake, smashed my ship. He drove it against the rocks at your island's far cape. He dashed it against a cliff as the winds rode us in. I and the men you see escaped a sudden death. Not a word in reply to that, the ruthless brute. Lurching up, he lunged out with his hands toward my men, and snatching two at once, rapping them on the ground, he knocked them dead like pups till their brains gushed out all over, soaked the floor, and ripping them limb from limb to fix his meal, he bolted them down like a mountain lion, left no scrap, devoured entrails, flesh and bones, marrow and all. We flung our arms to Zeus, we wept and cried aloud, looking on at his grisly work, paralyzed, appalled. But once the Cyclops had stuffed his enormous gut with human flesh, washing it down with raw milk, he slept in his cave, stretched out along his flocks, and I, with my fighting heart, I thought at first to steal up to him, draw the sharp sword at my hip, and stab his chest where the midriff packs the liver. I groped for the fatal spot, but a fresh thought held me back. There at a stroke we'd finish off ourselves as well. How could we, with our bare hands, heave back that slab he set to block his cavern's gaping maw? So we lay there, groaning, waiting dawn's first light. When young Dawn with her rose-red fingers shone once more, the monster relit his fire and milked his handsome ewes, each in order, putting a suckling beneath each dam. And as soon as he'd briskly finished all his chores, he snatched up two more men and fixed his meal. Well fed, he drove his fat sheep from the cave, lightly lifting the huge door slab up and away, then slipped it back in place as a hunter flips the lid of his quiver shut. Piercing whistles, turning his flocks to the hills, he left me there, the heart inside me brooding on revenge. How could I pay him back? Would Athena give me glory? Here was the plan that struck my mind best. The Cyclops' great club, there it lay by the pins, olive wood, full of sap. He'd lopped it off to brandish it once it dried. Looking it over, we judged it big enough to be the mast of a pitch-black ship with her 20 oars, a freighter broad in the beam that plows through miles of sea, so long, so thick, it bulked before our eyes. Well, flanking it now, I chopped off a fathom's length, rolled it to my comrades, told them to plane it down, and they made the club smooth as I bent and shaved the tip to a stabbing point. I turned it over the blazing fire to char it good and hard, then hid it well, buried deep under the dung that littered the cavern's floor in thick, wet clumps. And now I ordered my shipmates all to cast lots, who'd brave it out with me, to hoist our stake and grind it into his eye when sleep had overcome him. Luck of the draw, I got the very ones I would have picked myself. 4 good men, and I in the lead made 5. Nightfall brought him back, herding his woolly sheep, and he quickly drove the sleek flock into the vaulted cavern, rams and all, none left outside in the walled yard, his own idea perhaps, or a god led him on. Then he hoisted the huge slab to block the door and squatted to milk his sheep and bleating goats, each in order, putting a suckling underneath each dam. And as soon as he'd briskly finished all his chores, he snatched up 2 more men and fixed his meal. But this time I lifted a carved wooden bowl, brimful of my ruddy wine, and went right up to the Cyclops, enticing. Here, Cyclops, try this wine to top off the banquet of human flesh you've bolted down. Judge for yourself what stock our ship had stored. I brought it here to make you a fine libation, hoping you would pity me, Cyclops, send me home. But your rages are insufferable. You barbarian, how can any man on earth come to visit you after this? What you've done outrages all that's right. At that he seized the bowl and tossed it off, and the heady wine pleased him immensely. More! He demanded a second bowl, a hearty helping. And tell me your name now, quickly, so I can hand my guest a gift to warm his heart. Our soil yields the Cyclops powerful, full-bodied wine, and the rains from Zeus to build its strength. But this is nectar, ambrosia, this flows from heaven. So he declared. I poured him another fiery bowl. 3 bowls I brimmed, and 3 he drank to the last drop, the fool. And then, when the wine was swirling round his brain, I approached my host with a cordial winning word. So you ask me the name I'm known by, Cyclops. I will tell you, but you must give me a guest gift as you promised. Nobody. That's my name. Nobody. So my mother and father call me, all my friends. But he boomed back at me from his ruthless heart. Nobody? I'll eat nobody last of all his friends. I'll eat the others first. That's my gift to you. With that, he toppled over, sprawled full length, flat on his back, and lay there, his massive neck slumping to one side, and sleep that conquers all overwhelmed him now as wine came spurting, flooding up from his gullet with chunks of human flesh. He vomited, blind drunk. Now, at last, I thrust our stake in a bed of embers to get it red hot, and rallied all my comrades. Courage, no panic, no one hang back now. As green as it was, just as the olive stake was about to catch fire, the glow terrific, yes, I dragged it from the flames, my men clustering round as some god breathed enormous courage through us all. Hoisting high that olive stake with its stabbing point, straight into the monster's eye they rammed it hard. I drove my weight on it from above and bored it home, as a shipwright bores his beam with a shipwright's drill. That men below, whipping the strap back and forth, whirl, and the drill keeps twisting faster, never stopping. So we seized our stake with its fiery tip and bored it round and round in the giant's eye till blood came boiling up around that smoking shaft, and the hot blast singed his brow and eyelids round the core, and the broiling eyeball burst. Its crackling roots blazed and hissed as a blacksmith plunges a golden axe or adze in an ice-cold bath, and the metal screeches steam and its temper hardens. That's the iron strength. So the eye of the Cyclops sizzled round that stake, He loosed a hideous roar. The rock walls echoed round, and we scuttled back in horror. The monster wrenched the spike from his eye, and out it came with a red geyser of blood. He flung it aside with frantic hands, and mad with pain, he bellowed out for help from his neighbor Cyclops, living around about in caves on widespread crags. Hearing his cries, they lumbered up from every side, and hulking round his cavern, asked what ailed him.
"What, Polyphemus? What in the world's the trouble?"
Roaring out in the God-sent night to rob us of our sleep.
"Surely no one's rustling your flocks against your will. Surely no one's trying to kill you now by fraud or force." "Nobody, friends,"
Polyphemus bellowed back from his cave.
"Nobody's killing me now by fraud and not by force."
"If you're alone," his friends boomed back at once,
"and nobody's trying to overpower you now, look, it must be a plague sent here by mighty Zeus, and there's no escape from that. You better pray to your father, Lord Poseidon."
They lumbered off, but laughter filled my heart to think how nobody's name, my great cunning stroke, had duped them one and all. But the Cyclops there, still groaning, racked with agony, groped around for the huge slab, and heaving it from the doorway down, he sat in the cave's mouth, his arms spread wide, hoping to catch a comrade stealing out with sheep. Such a blithering fool he took me for, but I was already plotting. What was the best way out? How could I find an escape from death for my crew, myself as well? My wits kept weaving cunning schemes, life at stake, monstrous death staring us in the face, till this plan struck my mind as best. That flock, those well-fed rams with their splendid thick fleece, sturdy, handsome beasts sporting their dark weight of wool, I lashed them abreast, quietly, twisting the willow twigs the Cyclops slept on. Giant, lawless brute, I took them 3 by 3. Each ram in the middle bore a man, while the two rams either side would shield him well. So 3 beasts to bear each man, but as for myself, there was one bellwether ram, the prize of all the flock, and clutching him by his back, tucked up under his shaggy belly, there I hung, face upward, both hands locked in his marvelous deep fleece, clinging for dear life, my spirit steeled, enduring. So we held on, desperate, waiting dawn's first light. As soon as young dawn with her rose-red fingers shone once more, the rams went rumbling out of the cave toward pasture. The ewes kept bleating round the pens, unmilked, their udders about to burst. Their master now, heaving in torment, felt the back of each animal, halting before him here. But the idiot never sensed my men were trussed up under the thick, fleecy ribs. And last of them all came my great ram now, striding out, weighing down with his dense wool in my deep plots. Stroking him gently, powerful Polyphemus murmured,
"Dear old ram, why last of the flock to quit the cave? In the good old days, you'd never lag behind the rest, you with your long marching strides, first by far of the flock to graze the fresh young grasses, first by far to reach the rippling streams, first to turn back home keen for your fold when night comes on. But now you're last of all. And why? Sick at heart for your master's eye, that coward gouged out with his wicked crew, only after he'd stunned my wits with wine, that nobody, who's not escaped his death, I swear, not yet. Oh, if only you thought like me, had words like me to tell me where that scoundrel is cringing from my rage, I'd smash him against the ground, I'd spill his brains. Flooding across my cave, and that would ease my heart of the pains that good-for-nothing nobody made me suffer."
We're going to pause here and answer another question.